What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the No Name Podcast. It is your boy, Young Rich, back again with another episode here today. And today we are back with another episode. Obviously, the NBA playoffs is still going on today. I've been really locked in with the playoffs. WNBA just started as well, which we'll get into in a little bit. Some pretty good things. Some pretty entertaining. The matchups have been great. The playoffs have been great. Overall, just great basketball. Good storylines building up. And, NFL, the offseason stuff, all post-draft moves and extensions and things like that are still going into play. Teams are obviously preparing for the upcoming season. Schedules got released, which we will be discussing a little bit later in this episode. But I want to apologize for the inconsistency these past couple weeks. I've just not been getting as much done as I would like to. Obviously, one episode in the last 2 weeks is not what I'm aiming for, not what I'm hoping for. I did have a video I was supposed to upload on my second channel yesterday or 2 days ago, but there was a little bit of an audio issue, so I apologize for that as well. But again, before we get started, I do have a second channel, which is for shorter, smaller videos where I just do more, sports talk, funner things, just more casual stuff instead of a long debating to like podcast that I typically post. So if you want to check that out, the link will be in the description below. With that being said, first things first, the Boston Celtics obviously advanced against the Cleveland Cavaliers this yesterday. And listen, this was a huge win for Boston. Not only for the fact that they didn't have KP, but you just wanted to end this series as quick as possible. Obviously, the Knicks and the Pacers are going into Game 6 right now. You have the Knicks pretty banged up with injuries. The Knicks playing, a lot of their big guys are playing 40 minutes a game, 48 minutes a game. Josh Hart, he only missed the fourth quarter this past game because they were up by so much. But he's been playing every single game of the series so far. Jalen Brunson's a little banged up, but he's still putting on. So this was huge to close it out in 5, right? Obviously, them losing a game to me was kind of whatever. I expected a sweep, if I'm being completely honest, just how dominant the Boston was. Jason Tatum didn't play as great as we would have hoped. Donovan Mitchell obviously had himself a great game too. So it happens. It happens. But obviously, Cleveland Cavaliers, no Donovan Mitchell, no Jared Allen, basically the entire series. So it's Darius Garland, Max Strus, and Evan Mobley versus the world. They didn't even have Karis LeVert. They were very undermanned for this game. To me, obviously, clearly there has to be bigger issues going on with Donovan Mitchell. He was having himself a great postseason run, as he typically does. For what he did against the Magic and for what he was doing against Boston to start the series off, and then obviously missing him played a huge role in how this series ended. Did I think Donovan Mitchell was going to make that much of a difference? No, right? Boston is a very dominant team. Even without KP, they're a dominant team. They're going to get in your face defensively. Derek White, Drew Holiday, 2 elite perimeter defenders in the league. Derek White is shooting 40% from 3 this postseason run, or he was for a certain amount of time through the first 3 games of the series. But listen, this team is just dominant, and I started to see a lot of people question Jason Tatum, right? And I am a big, believer. We all know that what he had did against the Golden State Warriors in the finals previously, we understand the expectations that was set for him and himself, and what he's been saying this year. He says, he thinks he should be in the MVP discussion, being the best player on the best team in the league. What doesn't deserve, what else do you want in MVP of the league, right? So he's talked about this. He's talked about, before the season started, wanted to be an all defensive player. Him and Jaylen Brown both wanted to lock in extra hard on the defensive end, right? And which they've been doing. They've been doing their thing. But there is a bit of a question mark with Jason Tatum. Do we get the best version of Jason Tatum when it matters most, And obviously he's had his moments, his series, that obviously that title run, he, gave Giannis, 55 to outperform him and close the series out, So he is a very good performer. He's proved that he can perform in the postseason. But obviously I heard it around social media, you had different people worrying about Jason Tatum for the fact that he had just a lackluster start to the playoffs. He wasn't shooting the 3 very well. He wasn't scoring like he typically can. And he said, "Yo, chill out, bro. If If me scoring the ball is my biggest issue in this game, because he's rebounding, he's playmaking, he's playing defense, if scoring points and getting buckets is the worst part of my game in this series, in this playoff run so far, don't worry about it. I'm not worried about it, right? And he answered the call. I mean, Jason Tatum, these last two games, 33, 11, and 5, 25, 10, and 9. I mean, almost a triple-double to close it out, right? But, I mean, listen, he came, he answered the bell, he got his buckets, he helped his team close out the series. He showed up when he needed it, those two closeout games to get it done. So again, huge shout out to them. Obviously Cleveland being very undermanned. Obviously, this is what it turned into. And listen, Cleveland, they didn't look great against the Magic, like overall as a team, as a unit. Especially Darius Garland, Max Strus, these guys who are supposed to be game changer, supposed to help you be winning games, and Darius Garland is really he's the biggest question mark for me when it comes to this Celtics team or this Cavs team, and when you look at the future, because listen, I was a huge fan of Darius Garland, right? Darius Garland, before Donovan Mitchell got there, was was an all-star caliber point guard. He did make the all-star game. I think his numbers were 25, 5, and 8 before the All-Star break that year. He got him to the play-in. Unfortunately, they lost the 2 play-in games, which happens. You're, kind of undermanned young team and things like that. But I have not seen that version of Darius Garland since Donovan Mitchell has showed up. And I understand that it's two ball dominant guards. You have Donovan Mitchell, who his playmaking has taken a good step in the right direction this year, but he's known to get buckets. He's known to go out there and go score. And so when they're both on the court, it just not meshed well for what we thought could happen, or what the ceiling could have been. We expected a lot more, but it's just, to me, ever since Donovan Mitchell showed up, Darius Garland has not been aggressive enough. He has not been trying to get himself going. He has not been just the same Darius Garland. I think he's a great player. I think he's a fantastic player, and obviously, I started hearing more trade talks discussing Darius Garland, DG, going to other places. The teams who need a point guard also have a dominant big, a team like the Spurs, that Victor Wembanyama, Darius Garland, that's something Darius Garland needs, an elite point guard who could also get you buckets. And I think that's a better opportunity for Darius Garland, because I think that's a situation where you could thrive, and having Wemby behind you defensively is just the best situation you could possibly ask for, and then you bring in the Magic, where you're playing alongside Paulo, where it's a little bit different. They don't have a true point guard, so there's some situations that I've heard, there's some teams that I've heard, especially also New Orleans Pelicans, him and Zion together pairing each other up. That's one place I've heard as well. But regardless, obviously, Cleveland Cavaliers did not live up to the expectations we had for them, right? And not only did LeBron end up coming to this game, which should we be worried about? No. I'm not even going to get into that discussion because, obviously the Combine was there, so he was there for Bronny, came to go see a game and, talk to people and just go show some support to Cleveland, and that's one of those situations where obviously you look at LeBron and what he's done in his career. So yes, you do understand the possibility of Cleveland possibly being a spot where he would like to go next year, if he doesn't re-sign with LA. But again, I'm not even going to get into that really, because at the end of the day, he can kind of do what he wants. He's at that age. He's at that point. He doesn't owe anybody anything, He doesn't have ties anywhere. Obviously his family's in LA and things like that, but he's from Cleveland. So, things like that. But then you start getting into the offseason. What are the ideal goals? What do you expect from the Cleveland Cavaliers going forward? Do you expect the Cleveland Cavaliers to stick out this roster? Because I'm already seeing on Twitter, I've been seeing it halfway through the season. Spida already getting, photoshopped in the LA Laker uniforms. Everyone's like, welcome to the team, which I could see it. I understand. The Lakers obviously have some draft capital that they could use. Does Rob Pelinka want to go be aggressive and make these type of big moves? Maybe. He's been known to do it before, but maybe it's time for him to go a different route. There's a lot of different things to put into perspective. But, at the end of the day, this Cleveland Cavaliers teams do got some questions to figure out, obviously the two small guard backcourt is just not working for the success you want. And, Donovan Mitchell has been very vocal about he wants to compete for championships. He wants to make deep playoff runs, and it has just not happened for this Cleveland's team, and obviously injury does make that a big issue. Not having Jared Allen, not having Donovan Mitchell, not having Karis LeVert. You're missing a lot of key guys when you need them most. So again, there's a lot of things they're gonna have to go look at and figure out. But again, we'll see how it goes. And obviously, big shout out to Bronny James. He just played in the combine game. From what I've heard, he scored 13 points in about 26 minutes in the combine game, which was a big deal for him. I watched a couple of his highlights, shooting the ball well. In a lot of interviews, it's interesting because, you see all these things about LeBron James wanting to play with his son and do all these things. But Bronny was very vocal that he wanted to be on his own. He wanted to build his own, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for right now. He wants to build his own resume, his own legacy. He wants to be his own man. He wants to do his own things. He doesn't really want to be tied into his dad coming into the league, which, he was very vocal about it, and so it's just, interesting to see, because you've heard all this talk about, again, LeBron wanted to play with his son, and all these teams are now making calls saying that they would draft his son, if he comes along, and things like that, So it's just interesting to see. But big shout out to Bronny for voicing that opinion, for letting everybody know and it be known how he's feeling about being in the NBA while his dad's still here and playing alongside his dad, right? But obviously, Bronny James transitioning into the NBA obviously is going to be a role player. That is what his build is. That's what he's seen and scouted as to be, which is something he did take pride in the interviews. He did go out there and say he wants to be well known defensively. He wants to show his defensive effort, and he thinks that can get him a long way in the league. And his jumpers were hitting. Again, I only saw the highlights, so his shot looked better than what it looked at USC, but it definitely still got a long way to go to develop and turn into a true 3-and-D role player in the NBA. The Mavs go up 3-2 after last night. Luka, he answered the call. He was struggling all series long. We were begging for Luka to come out and give us a game, especially with his knee injury. We understand that he's been vocal about it. You can see it during his play, but he answered. 31-point triple-double to go take the lead in OKC in Oklahoma. Obviously, you go up 3-2 going back to Dallas. You got to be feeling very confident going forward, and I feel very confident. I picked OKC to win this series just because they're the young team, they're the new kids on the block. I would like to see a young team, make their mark this year, this young and on a first attempt, really, that would be something so insane and crazy to see. So I'm all for that. Storylines of that, the SGA MVP caliber guy who leads his team to the finals or to the Western Conference Finals, So again, obviously, that's not what's happening, and it's very scary going back to Dallas, up 3-2, down 3-2 if you are OKC. You had a very off night. Chet's shots were not falling. J-Dub's shots were not falling. Lou Dort, a guy who's been very consistent shooting a three all season long, 31% from the three this series. But, one of the biggest things I really want to talk about is the whole Josh Giddey situation. Listen, Josh Giddey got pulled out of the starting lineup yesterday for, he only played 12 minutes. And in those 12 minutes, he had 11, 3, and 2, and you gave those minutes to Carson Wallace and Isaiah Joe, who were 2 from 13 from 3 in this series, and it looked like Josh Giddey was definitely missed. His playmaking ability is him being a secondary ball handler to SGA, getting other guys open looks, and allowing SGA to kind of just get in his bag and do his thing, So definitely a bit of a questionable call. You did it game 6, or you did it in game 5. You took a risk. You did it in game 6. What am I talking about? You did it in game 5. You took a risk. You made a decision and you stuck with it. So I respect you for sticking with it, but it obviously backfired because 2 from 13 from 3. This team's shots were not falling, and compared to the regular season, they were such a high efficiency 3-point shooting team, and again, this is a very young team, so there is no pressure. You're not, taking anything away from these guys or what they've done due to the 3-point shot not falling. We've seen it time and time again. As 3 quarters through, they realize the shot is not falling, so then you come out here and it's start to get to the rim. J-Dub starts attacking attacking the paint, getting in there, getting easy buckets, using their size and their skill to finish around the basket, and then you have Chet, the same thing. He did it last night, late in that game. The three-point shot was not falling, so he started cutting more. He started more pick and roll and getting the ball and around the finishing around the basket, again. But, big shout out to PJ Washington and Derrick Jones, because, the Mavs, again, it's crazy to think that throughout this whole series, you have not gotten the best version of Luka Doncic or Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving, 11 shots yesterday. The night before, I believe he had 9. He has not been putting up enough shots. He has not been aggressive enough as a player. He's doing everything else you want from him. He's buying in defensively. He's playmaking. He's rebounding. He's doing everything else but scoring, and it's Kyrie Irving at the end of the day. One of the best, greatest scorers we've ever seen. One of the most talented players we've ever seen. And so you would like to see him be more aggressive. You would like to see him be more creative and try to get himself going, right? He's playing so great, team-friendly basketball right now that it seems to be hurting him scoring wise. And I think in this game 6, going back to Dallas again, this OKC team is scrappy. They've won on the road already. They're just trading games back and forth. Home court advantage at this point doesn't mean anything based on how this series has been going. And so when you need it, I believe Kyrie Irving should get more aggressive, especially with Luka injury, his knee injury in particular. Yes, he just had a great night, but again, you don't want to put too much pressure on Luka. He's struggled already this series. I know he just picked it up, but again, that knee, it is an issue. You can clearly and visually see it, watching the game, watching him play, watching him try to clear out, it's definitely affecting his play. And I would love to see Kyrie Irving go out here in game 6 at home in Dallas. You have all the fans, the crowd, vibing with you. Every time you score, the crowd's going to go crazy, so now's your chance to really step it up and go out there and be the aggressor. But big shout out to PJ Washington and Derrick Jones, like I was saying, because this has been a very role player dominant game. These role players have been giving them timely buckets and winning games for this team. Derrick Jones yesterday, 3 threes last night. And, again, he hasn't been very good from the 3 this entire series. But when it mattered most, you needed buckets. You needed somebody to step up and hit shots. And he did. Derrick Jones came up here and made shots. And PJ Washington, again, 2 crucial big buckets to that last 7 minutes of that game yesterday, right? And just when you needed him, he was there. He was being aggressive. He was dominating the glass. He was attempting to get boards. He was crashing the boards. All this, he was playing exactly how you would like to see him play, showing that he was worth that first round pick that you gave up to get him, right? Listen, PJ Washington, 19.4 points on 47.7 3-point percentage this series. He's been playing absolutely phenomenal. Just 2 games ago, he gave you 28 points. Listen, this has been a role player heavy game. You need your role players to really step up to help out Luka and Kyrie. Kyrie not being aggressive, Luka being injured and not playing very well, and his shots just falling short. And every time you need someone to step up, they have stepped up, and I couldn't be happier, including Derek Lively, which has been a great addition to this team. He's just continued, we understand OKC is undersized. Their rebounding issue is a big noticeable thing. Derek Lively last night, 10 rebounds, 8 points in about 20-something minutes. He dominated the glass. He was getting extra possessions for his team, which is going to hurt him in the end, So again, it's been role player after role player stepping up to come out here and, help you win these games. Because listen, SGA has been SGA. He's been phenomenal. He's SGA, 31.4 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists on 47 shooting percentage. So it's just crazy to see, and obviously Chet, 25% from 3 this series has not been very beneficial. And then the fact that, you have guys like Lou Dort, Carson Wallace, Isaiah Joe, just the shots are not falling. This team had 8 or 9 players shooting 40% from 3 in the regular season. Now the playoffs coming around and the shots are just not falling, which is taking a toll on them, definitely for sure. And obviously, they're still taking the shots. You're still seeing SGA trust his teammates to go out there and make some shots, But, I think, listen, you, at this point in the season, it's been through game 6. You eventually got to let it realize quicker that if the shots are not falling on the perimeter, you've got to attack the basket. You've got to get downhill. You've got to get some easy buckets. And you just got to play fast, Because, listen, OKC for that first 3 quarters was playing just kind of nonchalant, not very, aggressive, not very with any like emotion, any passion. Really, they look dead. They look flat. They came out flat, right? And it showed, right? But that last 7 minutes of the game, they were out there, they were hustling, they were crashing everything. The energy was high. They were getting to the basket, getting to the lane, getting easy points. J-Dub started taking advantage of his mismatches. SGA started, taking advantage of his mismatch with Luka. Shout out to Luka for not a game saving, but a game closing block on SGA, defensively. But I mean, listen, as young and as entertaining as this OKC team is, I just don't see them playing the way they are with their big role players playing the way they are. I don't know how they could withstand what could possibly come from Kyrie and Luka alone. Like Luka finally got himself a good game. And does that mean, going into game 6, again, at home, you have the crowd on your back. Now Kyrie's going to start to step it up, like Luka's going to give him the green light to go be more aggressive, like it can really get out of hand very, very easy. Because right now, this series has been SGA and J-Dub and Chet, these guys, the role player, again, the threes have not been falling, which was so part of their game in the regular season, and they're down 3-2 right now. SGA's playing at an MVP level, right? Phenomenal on a what? Again, 49 from the field, 47 from 3, like on a not phenomenal shooting split, and you're still down 3-2, and you're going on the road. And the only benefit from this whole entire thing is that Game 7 is in OKC, right? If it gets there. But this can be very scary very quickly. Dallas defensively has been showing up. PJ Washington making plays. Luka, again, game sealing block. And there's just too much firepower on this offense that I don't know if I could see them being off or not as good for another game, especially at home. They've got a lot of momentum building up right now, and I think they're going to try to do whatever at all costs to close it out in 6. They don't want to go back to OKC for Game 7. They just don't. So they're going to get their best game, their best effort from them coming forward. So, obviously, SGA has been doing SGA-like things. Maybe SGA has a 50-point masterclass and puts the team on his back. But no, I definitely think the role players got to step up. I would like to see Josh Giddey get back in there, just get some more minutes, especially with Isaiah Joe and Carson Wallace shooting as inefficient as they are. But a shout out to Big Lou Dort as well. Just doing an absolute great job to defending Luka. This entire series, Obviously, yesterday Luka got the better of him, but the entire series, whether Luka's been hurt or not, it doesn't matter. He's giving everybody their best effort. He's smothering them, and a very elite perimeter defender. And they're very lucky to have him. Very lucky to have him. But obviously, my predictions might change. I might be feeling Dallas here in 6, just due to the situation and the possibility that Luka and Kyrie can really just catch fire like that and use this game as momentum to build off of. I'm sitting here, I'm watching Denver play Minnesota. Karl Anthony Towns had a great night. Obviously, listen, as a Lakers fan, you've been knocked out by the Denver Nuggets twice. So you watch this team come out here and play. You are glad to see that they got their asses handed to them for 2 straight games, in Denver. You know what I'm saying? On the road. Minnesota came on the road and they gave them business. And then to just lose 3 straight like that is just very unfortunate. And Anthony Edwards couldn't have said it any better. Jokic, again, just got his 3rd MVP in 4 years. And he did what MVP players do. And Anthony Edwards said the same thing. What am I supposed to do? You can just laugh about it at the end of the day because that's the best player in the world. That is the MVP of the league for a reason. And he showed why he is the MVP of the league for a reason. Listen, Jokic last night, 47 and 13, 2 for 3. This dude played absolutely phenomenal, was absolutely dominating Rudy Gobert, the defensive player of the year. I know Anthony Davis supporters were on Twitter going crazy because I was looking at it. I know everybody was coming for Rudy Gobert's neck. Everyone was saying this year defensive player of the year is out here getting cooked by Nikola Jokic. And obviously, Nikola Jokic is just that good, right? Like, some of the stuff Nikola Jokic was doing was absolutely remarkable. I mean, you just, the and ones he was getting to, I mean, it's just absolutely nothing you can do about it. And you even seen him get a couple little dunks in this game in transition, which, I mean, just fun to see whenever you see him dunk. Because, again, it's all just effortless, you know? Like, he's not really jumping. He just two hands, not what, you know, just so technically sound and fundamental. And it's great basketball to watch. But being a Lakers fan, it hurts me. It hurts my soul that I'm sitting here and they won 3 games in a row, you know, and now it gets scary for Minnesota. Now Minnesota's got to answer back. But again, I mean, listen, there's a bit of voodoo going on in the Denver Nuggets locker room. I mean, DeAndre Jordan said it best. He said after their Game 5 victory, you know, Aaron Gordon missed the team dinner after their Game 2 loss to Minnesota. And ever since then, they are 3-0. So ever since then, Aaron Gordon is not invited to team dinner, because, which I think is kind of funny, you know. Whatever gets you going, whatever you believe in, whatever, you know, keeps you motivated and have belief. Because, I mean, listen, you give this team life, they're going to make you pay. And Nikola Jokic showed you. He went out here and gave you the MVP performance we've all been waiting for and we've all expected and we know he can do on a night in and night out basis. You know, Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year, getting cooked, you know, and then you see Rudy Gobert offensively not helping anybody at all. Like, you know, I've seen a couple of times Rudy Gobert try to put the ball on the floor, you know, around the paint or in the post, and it was just not pretty. It was ugly, you know. It really was. But I mean that's all it really is. And you know, I also seen Dwight Howard post about this the other day, which again, very smart guy. He knows, you know, in the bubble when we did beat Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and Nikola Jokic, we had a 2 big rotation, right? Which was obviously Dwight Howard and AD, and you just give the other one support, and then you just, you know, allow one person to shoot those shots, you know? So again, he knows what he's talking about. He's done it before. We've seen the highlights. We've seen the success before. And he posted on Twitter. He said, start Naz Reid, you know, and just run 2 bigs, you know, which again, that could be a very interesting take because it's not a terrible idea, you know. I mean, that's kind of what the Lakers tried to do, but we didn't have another big that we really trusted to go out there. Like we tried to do it with Rui and Braun, get both of those guys on Jokic so AD can come around and give rim protection, give some help support. And it worked. You know, it really did work to a T. Like, you know, you didn't see Nikola Jokic go like MVP Nikola Jokic crazy. He had his good games. He had his couple of 2020s, you know, but it's not like he went berserk. It's not like he looked like 47 and 13 every night. You know, like he wasn't doing that type of stuff to AD and to our team. And Naz Reid was doing a phenomenal job against Jokic the first 2 games, right? He was doing a wonderful job defensively. He was hitting his shots, you know, so that's a good idea. Like, I'm not opposed to something like that, where you have an extra true big down there just to throw bodies at Nikola Jokic, and Rudy Gobert can do more of the whole, you know, protect the rim and just kind of close out and show some help support, and then live with Aaron Gordon shooting these open shots, you know? Like, there's not everybody in this Denver team can shoot, you know? And it's noticeable. Christian Brown, another guy who doesn't like to shoot the ball. So, you know, that's definitely an option. And Dwight Howard's not wrong because it's been proved successful before. And I think that's a good idea, specifically with Naz Reid and what he's been able to do defensively early in this series. I would like to see Naz Reid get going on offense a little bit more, because when he was shooting, he's a key, crucial piece to this team, you know. When he's going, that team is going, you know. And then you also have Cat, who can go out there and still play in the perimeter. So it's, you know, so you have all these options, and Naz Reid can also add to that spacing, you know. So again, it's interesting to think about, and I think it's a really good point. You know, the more bodies you get at Nikola Jokic, the more better chance you have of slowing him down, you know, because you can't stop him. You know, at some point he's gonna do something, whether he's playmaking, getting his rebound, whatever. You know, he's gonna get something going, you know. But, I mean, listen, KCP, 4 for 5 from 3 last night. He hit a couple of big-time threes down the stretch, and just, like, he was making timely 3 after timely 3, and people were letting him shoot some of these shots that were just, like, I couldn't believe you were leaving KCP wide open with how hot he was last night. Then you have Jamal Murray, 7 for 14, 16 points. I just want a big shout-out to Aaron Gordon. I mean, listen, yesterday, 7 for 14, 18, 10, and 5 yesterday, but on the series, 17 for 4 points, 5 rebounds, 5 5 assists a game on 67% field goal percent, 61% from three. You know, like this series he's playing absolutely phenomenal. He's doing, you know, great as the cut man, playing off Jokic, you know, again, and then defensively getting rebounds, you know, closing out possessions, giving them extra opportunities on offense, and allowing his team to trust them to make key crucial baskets, you know. And when you have Aaron Gordon is really the guy that, if you have him playing well, you have a very, very high chance of succeeding. Like, you don't need much else if Aaron Gordon is doing what Aaron Gordon is doing. Like, he is one of those players, he's like a Draymond Green to his team, right? Minus the playmaking and the offense running through him, right? But you get him going defensively, getting rebounds, playmaking a little bit, shooting his shots when they come his way. This team is just kind of unbeatable, you know, because when you have the guy who you're letting shoot in the corner shoot 61% from three, and I know he's not taking many of the shots, but 61% from three, 61% from three, you know? So you've got to have him respected. And even Jaden McDaniels, he said, you know, we've got to close out on Aaron Gordon. You know, we were letting him shoot, and he was shooting those shots with confidence, you know. So we've got to clear out. We've got to respect his shot, which they did show a bit more attention to. But, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, Denver just made a huge adjustment defensively and just basically doubled Anthony Edwards and allowed anybody else to beat you. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, Edwards last night did not have a very good performance. Again, just they were throwing multiple bodies at him every single chance they got. Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting a big bounce back game from Anthony Edwards because I think it's one of those game 6, down 3-2, going back to Minnesota, going to play at home. Again, the crowd behind you. Those tough shots are going to be falling, you know, especially with Anthony Edwards doing what he is and the caliber of player he is. You know, I expect him to come out with a vengeance, not to get eliminated. He's going to give everything he possibly can. I also expect another big game from Karl Anthony Towns because he needs to step up a little bit, especially if Anthony Edwards is getting double teamed. You have to make them pay. Somebody else has to help Anthony Edwards offensively at a different level, you know. So whether that's Karl Anthony Towns going for 30, you know, somebody else needs help. If they're going to throw 2 bodies at him, you've got to show extra help, and you've got to allow more people to help you out. And you need more people to help you out. They need to step up and help Anthony Edwards in this type of situation. But again, I would like nothing more than the Nuggets to lose. But the only issue with that is the Nuggets have 2 chances to win 1 game now. You know, we're already the best team in the league, you know, not by standings, but just best team in the league, as in you watch them play the second half of the season after All-Star break, and they were really locked in. You've seen how dominant they were. I mean, defending NBA champs, trying to go back-to-back, you know, these guys. Jamal Murray's been playing a little bit lackluster this series and this entire playoff run. So, like, when does he start to get it going, you know? So it's going to be interesting to see. It's tough to really sit here and try to convince myself that Denver loses both of the next 2, especially when you're coming back to Denver, the place where, you know, they look like a completely different team last night, or 2 nights ago, compared to what they were before, when they lost their first 2 games at home, you know. So again, it'll be interesting to see. But again, I think I'm gonna stick with my Timberwolves pick here. I'm gonna stick with the Timberwolves pick here. Actually, I think my original pick was Denver. It was Denver in here. So, but I'm gonna say Denver in 6. I'm gonna say they pull it away. They pull it out in 6. They're not even gonna force a game 7. I think they're going to kind of run the same scheme as they did. Double Anthony Edwards, let anyone else beat you. So if nobody else beats you, they don't really stand a chance. But I also want to take a big talk a little bit about Draymond Green. I mean, Draymond Green obviously took shots at Rudy Gobert last night, you know, saying that he needs to get his stops. You know, you just got a baby. You got to come out here and do your stops. You're worried about all the wrong things. So, you know, it was cool to see those guys on TNT, but Draymond was obviously talking like Draymond was. But it was, you know, Charles got him one time where it was, you know, Draymond was out here saying Curry should have got clutch player of the year due to how much they were winning compared to DeMar DeRozan. And then, then, Chuck comes out and says, you guys made the play and you didn't even make the playoffs, and all this stuff. So it's just good vibes. It's nice to see they bring on some current NBA players, defensive-minded players on the show yesterday as well. Just brings some extra energy, some extra people, some different opinions, and Draymond being Draymond obviously came on and just started talking about Rudy Gobert, because obviously Nikola Jokic is a hard guy to stop. And I heard Kenny Beecham talk about this the other day, that Nikola Jokic averages 30 points against Draymond Green and Golden State. So, again, Nikola Jokic is a handful to deal with. So if him doing that, he could do it on any given night when he truly chooses to. The lights shine brighter in New York. Listen, Madison Square Garden was lit last night. 2 days ago. They've been active all series long. Every time they come to the Garden, you feel that energy. You feel the atmosphere, the playoff atmosphere over there in New York. You bring out all the celebrities. You bring out the former Knicks. This has just been a very good series. And listen, the Knicks go up 3-2. Going back to Indiana for Game 6, right? Jalen Brunson, 44, 4 and 7. Josh Hart, 18, 11 and 3. Josh Hart finally got to sit a game, not play the full 48 minutes again. They were up by so much that he got a little bit of a rest in the fourth quarter. But again, listen, this series has been very, so much respect for the New York Knicks. I'm a very big Jalen Brunson fan now. I was a fan of him, what he did in Dallas and coming to New York. I didn't think he was going to be this type of Jalen Brunson, superstar Jalen Brunson, but I did respect his game and what he was doing, and what he did last year in the playoffs. And how he carries himself as a player and carried this team, with no Julius Randle basically the entire year. You lose Mitchell Robinson for a majority of the year, and then as soon as he gets healthy, he comes in the playoffs, you lose him again. You lose OG Anunoby again due to a hamstring. You lose Bojan Bogdanovic in the first game of the series, So it's just been body after body. You're losing bodies. Tom Thibodeau is really forcing this guy to, Tim Thibodeau, is really forcing these guys to come out here and, play 48 minutes a game, 45 minutes a game. These guys are getting heavy minutes. They're locking in defensively. They're not making any excuses, right? And, huge respect to the Knicks for what they're doing and how far they've come. This has been a very scrappy series, but listen, they are a very, very beat up team. Right now, Dante DiVincenzo, you've seen it from him, from shooting lights out in the regular season and in the first series, 1 for 12 in the last 2 games of this series from 3, which is not something Dante DiVincenzo like. You have all these role players who are excelling at a very high rate. Josh Hart, again, excelling at a very high rate in this playoffs. Dante DiVincenzo, another guy. Miles McBride has his moments, Isaiah Hartenstein has his moments of just being dominant. How many offensive boards they had last night, offensive board after offensive board. Isaiah Hartenstein last night, 7, 17, and 5, played dominant, continuously giving his team multiple opportunities on offense and extra chances on offense. But listen, This becomes a bit worrisome for the Knicks, because even if they come out of this game with a win, even if they come out of this series and advance to go play Boston, you're sitting here at a 6-7 game series. Your guys have played through injuries. They've played through 40 to 48 minutes a game. In a 6 or 7 game series, it's your second series already. Your team is beat up. Your team looks exhausted. Jalen Brunson again. He's been banged up the entire series. You had a scrappy series against Philadelphia. This has not been an easy playoff journey for you guys, and you're now going to be set up to go play against Boston, right? Boston. I definitely think. Listen, I thought the New York Knicks were going to win in 4. I thought that was going to be a sweep. I really did. I would have given the Pacers 1 game. Obviously, it didn't happen, right? Yeah, Jalen Brunson, the first 2 games wasn't shooting very good, and then just with the injuries you continuously have it. So it's been a tough, scrappy series, and to come into the series against Boston, and now you're going to be sitting here looking at Boston, they just finished up in 5. The first series they had ended in 5. They haven't been playing as many minutes. Their role players have been stepping up, allowing them to not have to play so many high playoff game minutes, And so now you're sitting here, they're basically fully rested. You're going to have to come off of a scrappy 6-7 game series, high minute game, it's tough to sit here and with any sort of confidence think the Knicks have a chance against the Boston Celtics. Because listen, defensively they're locked in. Jalen Brunson, I believe in him to come out here and have some games, but I don't know if I trust anybody else on his team alongside him to game in and game out do what they got to do, Dante DiVincenzo, again, he's been slowing down, shooting from 3. Josh Hart, again, he's not a very efficient shooter, not a very efficient scorer, He's been elevating his game for sure due to the injuries they have, but that's not his main role, He's been dominating the glass, dominating in the assist category, playmaking, being a secondary ball handler for Jalen Brunson, So, again, the Knicks playoff run has been elevated based off role players exceeding expectations and continuously exceeding expectations. I know Jalen Brunson would love to have Julius Randle right now, putting up a couple shots, taking some pressure off of him, letting Julius Randle do his thing, giving him a little bit of a break because this guy's active on defense, he's active on offense, and what he's been continuously doing. Again, I respect Jalen Brunson so much for how he's handled himself, nearly 48-minute games, he's playing 40-plus minutes every single game. He's giving you 44, 40, 30, 35 every other night, It's impressive to see, but it's just concerning on how far you think this team can really go. Boston Celtics, you have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, KP has time to get healthy. You have Drew Holiday, Derek White. There's just so many. Al Horford, has his moments, right? But, it's so scary to look at this Boston Celtics team fully rested. You're going to be, for the most part, 100% healthy. And I just don't see a world in where the New York Knicks, even if they get there, can really compete in that series. I just don't think they have enough. I don't think these role players are going to meet the expectations of what they've been producing, and nobody's going to knock them for it, it was kind of, you wish you would have had OG Anunoby, you wish you would have had Mitchell Robinson, you wish you would have had Bogdanovich, Julius Randle, you wish you would have had these guys to help give you some buckets and take off some of the offensive pressure, but it's just not how the cards are dealt this year, and it sucks that possibly that's how the Knicks will go out because I think they're a more competitive team than that. But they have just been worn down for 2 straight series, have been going wire to wire every single game. Jalen Brunson's giving you everything possible. He's been playing through injuries. No one's complaining, And so huge respect to the New York Knicks. But, again, I don't see them competing against Boston. Or if the Pacers find a way to pull this off, I don't see them, winning it against Boston. But again, listen, the reason the Pacers to me have no absolute shot is because Tyrese Halliburton, man. Listen, you have Miles Turner playing phenomenal basketball right now. Miles Turner, 15.8 points per game, 6 rebounds on 51 from the field, 48% from 3. Siakam, 19 points on 53 field goal percentage. But Tyrese Halliburton, bro, 9 shots in game 5, 9 shots in game 5. You're not being as aggressive as you need to be to elevate your team and to take over moments. You're relying on Nembhard to come out here and shoot game winners. You know what I'm saying? You need to step up and be more aggressive. And I don't know what's wrong with him. I understand since the All-Star break, since his injury, his hamstring injury, he has been on a downward slope on efficiency and in a huge shooting slump. But you've got to go get after it. You are referred to as one of the best PGs in basketball. You were at one point where you are an all-star. At one point you were considered an all-pro caliber point guard to start the season, and you've got to get back to that. You've got to come out here. You've got to get aggressive. You got to score because they need more of that if you want a chance. Your role players, your number 2 option, your number 3 option, your number 4 option, they are performing. You have no Benedict Mathurin, and these other guys are stepping up, and you're not helping your team out. You've got to be the Tyrese Halliburton that they paid you to be. You've got to be the Tyrese Halliburton that we expect you to be. You've got to be better. You've got to be that Pro Bowl, that all-star caliber point guard. You've got to go be that guy. Steve Nash, a guy who was known for being a playmaker. John Stockton as well. They knew when they had to go get buckets, when their team was down and they needed to step up and get buckets. They knew when to be the aggressor. Trae Young, a guy, he knows when to go get his buckets. All right. So again, if there's no chance, they have no chance in winning this series if Tyrese Halliburton does not get it going and starts being the aggressor on offense, because Pascal Siakam cannot be your number one scorer on your team. He's just not. He cannot, especially with 19 points per game. All right, he just cannot. Now, here's where things get interesting. Now we're going to start talking about the WNBA. Because listen, everybody knows the hype about Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and these WNBA players, this current draft. Like, this is going to be one of the most influential, one of the best WNBA drafts in a very, very long time, And so, obviously, like with NIL deal and everything else going on, there was a lot of attention going into the WNBA this year with the names of Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and all these other players, But yesterday, if you weren't paying attention, because again, I'm doing my best to support the WNBA because I would like to see the WNBA. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm stuttering right now. I'm a little excited, I guess. But the WNBA, I would like to see it grow. I would like to see these, athletes get grow as individuals, their names get bigger, more attention to the game, the more revenue they get, the more the salaries can increase and things like that, right? Just taking care of the WNBA athletes and doing our best to support all these sports to grow, right? And listen, Caitlin Clark opening night versus the Connecticut Sun got the most views in 23 years with 2.1 million viewers for a WNBA game, which is absolutely insane to see. They blew the numbers out of the water. It wasn't even close, And this is great to see for the WNBA because Caitlin Clark did not play good, right? Listen, 20 points, 3 assists, 10 turnovers. What did I say? 5 for 15 from the Sorry, I was looking at my notes. 5 for 15 from the floor, 4 from 11 from 3. Listen, she did not look good yesterday, but everybody was tuned in and ready to watch her work. There was a bit of question from other WNBA athletes. Deanna Taurasi and Sue Bird, those were two people that were giving her a little bit of criticism, saying they don't know if she's going to dominate like this into the WNBA. It's a totally different game, the WNBA, and things like that. So obviously there is a whole bunch of pressure on Caitlin Clark. She's going into this. She is like the Victor Wembanyama of the league right now. She is supposed to be one of the best shooters ever. There's already people claiming she can be the best WNBA player ever, and that's a lot of expectation. That's a lot of, investment into Caitlin Clark. And, she's getting the shoe deals. She's getting the brand deals done. She is growing the WNBA, and she barely played one game. She's doing a phenomenal job from what she did in college and the NIL deal and her marketing, her image, what she's about, what she does. And it just, completely helped the WNBA, right? And then you add the addition of Angel Reese, who's in the same boat. She's got the brand deals coming in. She's very big in NIL for the college basketball and the women's athlete side of things. They have done a great job building these brands for themselves and introducing them and putting them into the WNBA. So I just wanted to speak about it and obviously talk about it. Angel Reese, again, did not have a great day for herself either opening night yesterday. 5 for 14, 2 for 8 from the free throw line, 12, 8, and 1, 5 personal fouls in 26 minutes yesterday. So it's been a rough start for both of the superstars, the college stars. But again, I expect them to figure it out and get used to it, because even specifically with Caitlin Clark, it just looked like the shots weren't falling. And then being down 21, it was kind of like you've got to apply the pressure. You've got to try some things and figure it out. So obviously, and I watched the game. I watched majority of the game. I would say about 75 to 80% of the game, just because I wanted to see what she was about. So I'm multitasking, watching this game, watching Cleveland versus the Celtics, and so on. But listen, there was a lot of passes she was clearly trying to make that in college she would have got away with, and in the WNBA, obviously she didn't. You got more veterans, lengthier players. They're well known. The passing lanes are tighter, all these things. And so I'm not worried about Caitlin Clark. I think she's going to be completely fine. I mean, listen, even though she wasn't very efficient, anywhere else on the court. I mean, 4 from 11 from 3, still 44% from 3, which is still a great clip, right? Especially for one game, the 10 turnovers, again, I think that's just an anomaly. I think it's a one-time thing, and maybe every once in a while you have a very bad game, but that some of these she was trying to do was just, like the reads she was making was right. Just the passing lanes were not as open as she thought it was. She thought she could sneak something into a tight lane, tight window, and it just didn't work, right? So again, I expect these two to figure it out and to continue to elevate their game and continue to improve. But again, I think Caitlin Clark is going to change the WNBA. And Angel Reese, this whole draft class is really going to change the WNBA for the better, because they have a lot of, again, the branding, the NIL, the marketing, their name, image, and likeness that they've created for themselves in college, transitioning into the WNBA, which is great for the scene. You need more eyes on the WNBA if you want it to grow, because even the greatest WNBA players, Breanna Stewart, Aisha Wilson, Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, all these players, they didn't have the name that these girls have coming out of college, these women, that these women had coming out of college, so it's great to see these women come into the league, the WNBA, and really make a stamp, post their name in here and let people know they're here, and the scene just growing, So it's great to see for the WNBA. Like, again, I want all leagues to succeed. I want the esports community to succeed. I want the MLB to succeed. I want the Ace to succeed when they go to Vegas. I want I just want all the leagues to succeed. I want all these teams to flourish. I want everything to work and be great. The more sports we got going on, the more stories, the more storyline, the better the drama, the better the action, the more to watch. You know what I'm saying? And now we're going to get into some NFL talk. I mean, listen, Jared Goff just got extended. For those of you who may not have known, listen, 4 years, $212 million, $170 million, guaranteed $53 million a year, right? Now, this, in comparison, this is setting the market for Dak Prescott, right? Dak Prescott now is a guy who we are hearing is going to be the highest paid player in NFL history. The guy is going to be getting $60 million a year. Whether he stays with Dallas next year, whether he goes to a new team, he is going to be the highest paid quarterback in the league, right? Because at absolute worst, he averages 12 wins a season, right? He's going to get you to the playoffs regardless of the situation, right? And so you start to think Jared Goff just made $53 million a year, Does that mean Dak Prescott is worth 60? Right? And to me, in hindsight, everything that matters to me about a player, about a quarterback, is the playoffs, right? We don't play for regular season awards. MVP, cool. But okay, you know what I'm saying? MVP, cool, right? Lamar, you have 2 of them. But what has he done in the postseason? One notable victory that he's had, and that was against Houston this year, where, kind of just blew them out the water, And then you go play against Kansas City, and there goes. The frauds are back. You're questioning you as a quarterback, as a team, is back. Like, what does regular season really get you? Like, what are we playing for? Tom Brady, he was playing for Super Bowls. He was taking pay cuts for Super Bowls. Like, this is the question you really have to ask yourself, and I get it. Go be all about your money. Go get paid. Go do what you can do. Maximize your financial window and your financial security, right? But as an organization, when I'm looking at people, you have to really consider what you are paying for. Am I paying for an MVP? Am I paying for 12 wins? Am I paying for a playoff appearance just to get there? Or am I paying for Super Bowls? Right? Or just to make it to the Super Bowl, you've got to understand what you're paying for and who you're paying, right? Because again, Dak Prescott, he's going to get it done in the regular season. At worst, he's going to be a 7th seed, going in as a wild card and making the playoffs, be a double-digit win team again. At worst, that is his regular ceiling floor. Okay, at best, he's a 12, 13 win, number 1 seed in their division. So what are you looking for? But in the playoffs, he's never proved to you that he can do it, you know? So when people start to talk about, is Jared Goff worth this money? Is Dak Prescott guaranteed to get 60? I think someone's going to pay him 60 due to the fact that somebody out here is going to have a lot of cap room, right? And somebody's going to be downright bad for a quarterback, and they're going to invest into a quarterback like this. Do I think Dak Prescott can win a Super Bowl? Yes. If it's not so Dak Prescott reliant. And which that means is not everything can play through Dak Prescott. You've got to limit the mistakes he can make, and you've got to help him in every other aspect. You've got to have a great defense. You've got to have a great run game. You've got to have good weapons. You know, like everything has to be perfect for Dak Prescott. And so if everything has to be perfect for Dak Prescott, I'm not paying him $60 million a year. You can get 55, $2 million more than Jared Goff, but I'm not paying you 60. 60 is a long commitment, is a lot more money. You know, I know the $5 million is like, it's just $5. It's still a lot of money when you have to eventually move money around from years to years and you know, affect your cap room and change your hard cap and all these different things, right? So it just depends what you're looking for. And then when people want to disrespect Jared Goff, that's my biggest issue. I know he's had a lot of question marks about playing against pressure, which we've seen this year in particular when they were on that like 4-game stretch where they were like 1-3, you know, and specifically they're only winning that 4-game stretch was against the Bears and then lost to the Bears again and then all that stuff, you know, but he figured it out and he managed to deal with pressure, right? And Jared Goff is actually one of the top 3 in most blitz quarterbacks when defenses play against him. He's pressured 3rd in the NFL more than anybody else, right? And he managed to be the 2 seed in the NFC, in a tough NFC, you know? So it is just a bit disrespectful when people try to talk down about, you know, what he got going on here. Because listen, for the most part, I mean, if you really, really think about it, I understand, listen. Other than Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta, he doesn't really have any other vertical threat. You know what I'm saying? And Sam Laporta, one of the best young tight ends in the league, top 5, top 6, because it's hard to rank him because there's so many talented tight ends now, like especially first, second-year guys. But other than that, who do you really have? Jameson Williams is not flourished like we all thought he would. You know, you have an amazing run game. I'm not going to take away that. You have an amazing O-line. You just extended Penei Sewell. You have Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. You just drafted Terrion Arnold and another cornerback from Mississippi, you know, so you address the secondary position. You have my guy from Alabama in the nickel who's been phenomenal this year. I forgot his name. I'm sorry about that, bro, but you were phenomenal this past year. Okay, and then you have Amon-Ra St. Brown. You just extended him. You're locked in to win a Super Bowl, and people were talking about you could have waited a year for Jared Goff to do it. Jared Goff this year was top 10 in completion percentage, 2nd in yards, 4th in TDs. You know, and then the question about Goff versus pressure. I mean, this guy can actually do that. He was, again, 3rd in most pressures by a quarterback, pressure percentage by a quarterback, 3rd in most times blitz by being a quarterback, right? So they were trying to get after him. He can't succeed under pressure, and he was managing. I mean, you number 2 seed in the NFC. You should have beat Dallas in the regular season, but you ended up going for 2 twice. You know, like there's a couple games in there where you could have, you know. So all I'm saying, and then you look at this Baker Mayfield, $35 million a year quarterback. You know, and that guy got you 9-8, won a playoff game. You know, but you fell short against Detroit, 2 interceptions that game. Kirk Cousins, $45 million a year, and that guy's coming off an ACL injury. You know, playing against a great O-line. Got some great weapons out there. Right? But to say Jared Goff is not worth this $53 million a year, it's just disrespectful, right? This guy has played great. You know, he took the team to the NFC Championship, a team that's been in poverty since Barry Sanders was there, and Barry Sanders only got 2 good years, 2 deep runs, you know, and this team's been in poverty ever since. The fans were behind him, the city was behind him, the state was behind him, everybody was going for Detroit, including me. Listen, and Detroit was 1/2 away from going to the Super Bowl to play Patrick Mahomes. Like, they were there, they had it, and who stepped up when things got tough was Jared Goff. He was delivering the accurate passes, making beautiful throws, stepping in the pocket, avoiding pressure. Josh Reynolds had 2 key drops in that fourth quarter of that game that screwed them over eventually, right? So again, this team is going to be a scary team going forward, and they've only gotten better on the secondary, which was their worst part about their team last year. So I have all confidence in Jared Goff to go out here and succeed and thrive. And Donovan Peoples-Jones, who is not a big pickup, but it's just another weapon out there to give for Jared Goff alongside Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? So again, I think this guy's worth the money they paid him. He's been to a Super Bowl already, and I'm not saying he's the best player on his team, right? But he's a better version of Kirk Cousins, in my opinion. And he's also a better game manager than Brock Purdy, in my opinion. All right, I know the INTs was a little up for a little bit, right? Compared to Brock Purdy. I mean, Brock Purdy had a handful of INTs too, a couple games, but it was more like 2 or 3 games where he had a lot, So, again, but I think Jared Goff is definitely better in those scenarios, in those aspects of playing quarterback than those 2 guys, But let me know what y'all think, because I truly think this was a good signing for them. I think he's proven that he can do that. He came into a team that was terrible. You just lost Matthew Stafford. You were 1-7, and then you won 8 straight, and you lost the last game to make it to the playoffs. Like, this team is ready. It's good. It's coming. And then we're going to talk about Antoine Winfield Jr., one of my favorite free safeties in the league. I mean, I wanted him so badly to stay in Tampa Bay. I wanted him to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer for life. You just re-signed Baker Mayfield for $35 million. You just extended Mike Evans for 2 more years. This team is here. You cut a couple people to make some salary work. But again, I couldn't be happier for this guy. All-pro safety, was one of the best safeties in the league when they won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady. He was one of the best players on that defense. He doesn't talk a lot. He's not a big drama guy. He goes out there, he plays, he tackles. He's a ball hawk, Highest paid DB ever in the NFL history. 4-year, $84 million contract, $45 million guaranteed, $21 million a year. He's worth every damn penny, and I wouldn't think it's another second about it. He's worth everything that he gets. He's been a phenomenal player since he came into the league, right? I have nothing but great things to say about him. His teammates have nothing but great things to say about him, and I know people question about investing in a DB like this, but when you have someone that remarkable, that game-changing, you have to secure them and lock them in. He is one of those guys. He's going to be one of those guys that is going to be around for a long time. He's going to dominate the league for a very long time, And I think he's just going to continue to get better. You're on a good team, a team that's trying to compete, so why not extend your best player on defense and make sure he comes back and make sure he's happy, right? You don't want any issues with getting paid or none of that stuff. So I think it's a great move, and then you put in comparison that he gets paid more than Jair Alexander and Jalen Ramsey. Different market, different time, Those Jair and Jalen Ramsey were obviously a couple years ago, so it was a different scenario, different situation, all that stuff. You also have a little bit of a cap increase, all these things. But I think it's a great extension for Tampa Bay. I think this guy should be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer for life. Like, you should never let this kid go unless he just gets too damn old, but And then last thing of today's episode, second to last thing of today's episode actually, is I want to discuss some of the NFL schedules. Obviously came out this past season, or this past day, yesterday actually. So I want to discuss a couple of them. Obviously, I want to go over the Raiders schedule this year because, a lot of people don't expect us to do very well. I've heard a couple, people say breakout QB possible. Aiden O'Connell could have a breakout year, so that's something I love to hear. Another year in the system, another year getting to learn, and develop as a player. So again, okay, but here's a couple things. I just want to look at it because I'm really, we have the 7th toughest schedule this year for the Las Vegas Raiders, and I just highlighted a couple games that are winnable, that I think can go either way, right? I mean, listen, you got obviously our league games, our division games, Los Angeles twice, you have the Chargers twice, play Carolina, Cleveland, Denver, Pittsburgh, Los Angeles Rams, the Miami Dolphins, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Atlanta Falcons, Jacksonville Jaguars, and the New Orleans Saints. I mean, listen, the Saints are absolute terrible. You get that revenge game on Derek Carr, make him look awful, even though he already made himself look awful, right? Miami, who we barely lost to last year, and it came down to the wire, right? We lost by a touchdown, and they have, if anything, have gotten worse, and we've gotten better, Offensive skill positions are basically the same. And then, Denver again, Bo Nix. I'm not a fan of Bo Nix. I'm not scared of Bo Nix. Carolina, again, they're going to have some steps in the right direction, but I don't think they're anything to be scared of. The Cleveland Browns, mainly because Deshaun Watson. When you look at Deshaun Watson has to play decent football to help this team win games, and I think we've improved defensively with the addition of Christian Wilkins. Something Cleveland likes to do is run the ball. We're here, we've had guys to add to that problem. We drafted some corners. We have some corners who are still continuing to develop. Jack Jones, Trayvon Moore, so we've got some pieces. We got some players, and I like our matchups against all these teams right here. Pittsburgh again, same thing. Quarterback situation. We don't know what the quarterback situation is going to look like. And then the Rams. The Rams is one team that can go, to me, either way. Because I think the Rams are a very, very good team, depending if they're all healthy, So that's an interesting one. Games I did not highlight is obviously the 2 versus Kansas City, even though we split one last year. I didn't highlight Cincinnati, didn't highlight Baltimore, So that's, that's, what is that? 3, 6, 9, 12. That's 13 games that I highlighted that are winnable to me, in my eyes. And the toughest games that I highlighted have got to be Cleveland, Jacksonville, and Atlanta. If we're counting Miami, because I think Jacksonville might be better than Miami this year. But anyways, let me know what y'all think. That looks like a pretty good record. I know it says a 7-tough schedule, but I don't know. I spell Super Bowl to me. So let me know what y'all think. I smell Super Bowl. And then I want to talk about the hardest schedule in the NFL going into this upcoming year, right? The Cleveland Browns are ranked. They have the number 1 toughest schedule going into next year. And just looking at some of them is absolutely crazy. These are the weakest games this team gets. They'll play the New York Giants. They'll play Vegas, which, again, quarterback situation, I'm not sure what to expect. I know we're about to win a Super Bowl, but I don't know what to expect. You got the Los Angeles Chargers, the New Orleans Saints, the Denver Broncos, right? That's 4 games that are 5 games that are below 500 teams. Okay? But you play at home versus Dallas. You play on the road versus Jacksonville. You play at Philadelphia. You play at home versus Cincinnati, obviously. You play Baltimore twice. You play Cincinnati twice. You play Pittsburgh twice. You play at home versus Kansas City. You play at home versus Miami, right? This is a very, very tough schedule. You're looking at a lot of teams that are trying to compete right now, and that a lot of these teams that made the playoffs last year, this is going to be very, very interesting to see how this all plays out, Yeah, Cleveland, a team that's trying to repeat. They're trying to make this consistent, success, this consistent winning culture over there. So I expect them to, again, I didn't pick them to win their division, but that schedule is insane. Absolutely insane, You have 3, contending teams on that roster. You play 2 of them twice, which is Baltimore and Cincinnati, and then you have to play Kansas City and Dallas, and Jacksonville, who was 8-3 before they lost last year, before Trevor Lawrence got hurt, and then Philadelphia, who started the season 11-1, 10-1. So that schedule is very scary for them, that's going to be a very tough one. If they could really make the playoff, that'd be a great accomplishment for them. And then we got the last schedule. This is the weakest schedule of the season, which is the Atlanta Falcons schedule, which again, I'm going to run it over. I highlighted the toughest games on their schedule. They play at home versus Pittsburgh, on the road versus Philadelphia, at home versus Kansas City, at home versus Dallas. 4 games. 4 games against all playoff teams that were playoff teams last year. Kansas City obviously won a Super Bowl. And Minnesota. They play at Minnesota, which obviously we don't understand the quarterback situation, so I don't know what's going to happen there. But, it's a very... it's a solid team. It's a competitive team. One of the most competitive teams that they got other than the top 4 I just named. But then you play, obviously, your division. You play New Orleans twice, Tampa Bay twice, Carolina twice. You play Denver. You play Seattle. You play Washington. You play New York Giants. You play the Raiders. This schedule is, again, so lackluster, bro. I just don't know. That really is one of the... It's crazy how these schedules get made. Because, a team like this, Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles injury, you're expecting them to take a big jump as a team, and then all of a sudden their team is a lot of tomato cans for the most part, Like, Atlanta could have beat Tampa Bay twice last year if they had Kirk Cousins, you know? Like, again, it's going to be crazy to see. I expect Atlanta to win 10 games at least. Like, at the absolute least 10 games. But before we end the episode off today, I want to talk about the College Football 25 being released. The official release date was July 19th, and I couldn't be more excited. Obviously, they did announce the cover athletes. It will be a 3-person cover athlete where you have Travis Hunter, Quinn Ewers, and Donovan Edwards from Michigan, for those of you who don't know. But again, I couldn't be more excited. I mean, obviously, we've been waiting a very, very long time for this, right? I've been seeing a lot of the announcers and the college football game day guys have been putting in a lot of work, a lot of hours with EA to make sure you have, voice cues for every single scenario and every single situation that could happen in college football. They said they have voice cues for 7 overtime games, for game winning over pick 6, overtime pick 6, all these different scenarios, which I think which is just great to see, because Madden is a game that we all love to play, but it's just, in my opinion, has not gotten any better. If anything, it's stayed exactly the same. Like, there's been no serious changes to Madden at all, and it's just got very stale, and NCAA, I still play it on my Xbox 360 to this date. To this date, I'm still playing the Xbox NCAA Road to Glory. Like, I'm still doing this stuff today, and now, in a month, we literally got a month and 3 days until this game drops, and I couldn't be more excited, There's supposed to be a big Heisman edition that's like $140 or whatever. Hopefully they put Reggie Bush on it because he just got his Heisman back. That would be kind of dope. But, man, I couldn't be more excited for college football community, and all this stuff, because I see a lot of people now that are big specifically in the college football world. And when you're big in the college football world, it's a different scene, it's a different audience, different people. And college football is one of the funnest things you could possibly watch or experience. For those of you who don't, you could have one of the worst teams in the country, and their stands are still going to be packed. The band's still going to be rolling. The kids are still going to be drunk and screaming and having a good ass time. So again, I mean, I'm just so excited for not only college football season coming up, a lot of big changes this year. College football playoff going to 8 teams this year. Teams moving conferences. Teams USC, UCLA, Oregon going to the Big Ten. You got Colorado going to the Big 12. It's going to be very interesting this upcoming season for college football, and I couldn't be more excited for the scene. Go USC, fight on, baby. But with that being said, I hope y'all enjoyed today's episode. I feel like it was a little bit longer, maybe like an hour, a little and some change. But let me know what y'all think in the comments below. Like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications if not already. If you're watching this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure to follow the show. Give it a 5-star rating. I'll greatly appreciate it. If you don't already, make sure to go subscribe to my second channel. Link will be in the description below, as long as my TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and all that good stuff. Road to 5K starts and continues. And yeah, hope y'all have a great day, you beautiful people. And with that being said, I'm signing